Good morning, it's Valerie Ling, clinical psychologist here. It's been a while since I've come on live, and that's because I have been battling with an injured ankle, which I'm happy to report is all sorted. Well, sorted from the point of view that I got the correct diagnostic done. So I actually knew what happened to my ankle, and I got some help, and I'm feeling very, very encouraged. Good morning, Kim. It's been ages since I've been on. So lovely to see you. I think I've actually missed coming on live and having these connective moments. I have got a burnout related tip to share, but I've also got a mental health personal story tip to share. But for that one, you're going to have to follow me onto the practice page, Center for Effective Living Facebook page, for me to share with you my aha moment. My burnout related tip today comes from, funnily enough, the experience that I've had with my ankle in terms of the right diagnostics. I was able last week to attend a conference where I was presenting, where I'm trying to really encourage organizations now to take a close look at the sort of systems and structures and culture that they have in place in their work-based teams that either promotes burnout prevention or perpetuates burnout. And one of the things that came out in our conversations was the idea of rhythms. You can have a good sense of your individual rhythms, and I talk a lot about that in other videos, and that is to do with your personal resources, right? Understanding your productivity cues, understanding your energy cues, your rest and recovery cues. But every organization also goes through particular rhythms, right? And it's really important that when we're actually thinking about our own, the individuals who are working within our organization, if you are a solo person, you are your organization and you're creating those sort of routines. And if you're part of a team or a larger structure, it's really important to actually think about what sort of organizational rhythms we're in. So I came across an article that was specific to the organization or the industry that I was speaking into last week, which I actually thought, you know what, this is fairly common organizational dynamics, if you like, that applies to any organization despite the industry. And I want to share that with you just to prompt the thought that when we're actually thinking about fit and monitoring our own resources and reactions to our work, that we also accept that the organization that we're working in is probably in a different stage as well. And we want to figure out what fit that is. So what are these stages? Well, first of all, it's the birth of an organization, right? You could be a part of an organization where you're coming in to conception stage. It's startup, it's entrepreneurial. There's a lot of unknown territory. There's a lot of change, a lot of ambivalence. And generally, when an organization is in this phase, the sort of roles and energy levels that are required of an individual have got to do with high energy levels. You're catalysts, you're inventing, you're innovating. I want to say two things about that. If your organization is in startup or entrepreneurial phase or rebirth phase, you need to think about what your fit to that season of the organizational life is. Are you someone who's naturally high energy, risk-taking, change-orientated, kind of impatient to create and invent things? If you are that sort of a person, then you're going to feel a great synergy with the life of the organization. However, you need to be careful that you have optimal recovery times as well. The Energizer Bunny does keep going, but it does eventually phase out. So you need to make sure that you've got some great frequent recovery times during your work life, during your work season. So that's the first thing. Oh, hello, Catherine. I loved your comment on the other Facebook group that we were chatting in. You love this topic. I'm happy. Oh, hello, Matt, too. I feel like I've got a party. All in an organization could actually be growth phase, right? Now, if any of you have ever tried to grow anything, a plant, a child, a pet, it takes intentional effort, lots of research, lots of putting down routines and maintaining those routines and problem solving, right? Now, in this growth phase, you're probably going to go into a kind of a different energy zone. You might find conflict starts to come up as people are kind of trying to grind together to head towards stability. And this is where you're also going to get a lot of team dynamics coming in. Needing to know the stages of team formation is also an important part of this time, because basically we're trying to head towards a growth period that eventually stabilizes. Because sometimes, well, a lot of times, we will get change fatigued. And so the drive to grow and the drive to get to a point of stability and equilibrium will inevitably have conflict. And so the kinds of processes and structures that are required during that phase will be the sorts of things that we want to try to get: policies, procedures, systems, structures, people agreeing, people disagreeing, people liking, people disliking, people shifting, they're kind of bearing to try to figure out whether it's working or not. Now, in this phase, you've got to assess your fit to this phase as well. What do you like with conflict? What do you like with high relational dynamics during this phase? What do you like in terms of giving and receiving feedback? How does this impact you? Again, if it's the kind of stuff that really energizes you, go for it. You love it. Make sure you have a recovery time. Do assess the relational impact on you, though. How are the other dimensions of your life going? Are you connecting with people in not so conflicting phases, right? So during the growth phase, this is what you're going to see. This is what you want to be thinking in terms of your fit and in terms of what you need to contain, to remain balanced and energized, but also in recovery phase. Now, sometimes organizations go through a phase where they may not be thriving. You know, if you read any sort of entrepreneurial books, there's this idea of two things: grow big, grow small, big, small, big, small, or accept that the first was the draft and be able to move on to the next. Now, if you're in an organization or if you're working in a situation where you're actually experiencing that, either there's some kind of a shedding of the old skin, or there's some kind of reinventing of the self, or quite possibly there was a shrinking down, right? This can be quite a discouraging, disheartening, morale lowering time of an organization. Now, some people might find this a time where they come in to be the soother, the consoler, the morale booster, the debriefer, and actually find a real place and a purpose in this time. But again, you want to make sure that if that is your fit and that is good for you, how are you getting a sense of hope and encouragement and joy in this role to be able to continue to do this sort of work, but in a hopeful space? If you're not someone that enjoys this sort of work, or at this stage of the organization, how can you be creating things in your external life that has a sense of growth or startup or stability? And finally, the part of an organization that we probably don't talk a lot about, but you know, it does happen, is the end stage. And sometimes that also is the end stage of our career or our time with the organization, when we've done all of the thinking as to whether our fit is good, whether we're still in a values alignment, whether it's the direction of growth, or perhaps there are insurmountable difficulties in an organization and it's actually time to say goodbye. This is sorrow. This is grief. This is loss. And thinking again about your own role in that, your own space in that. What do you need? You probably will need a time of grieving, of mourning, of coming to terms with some of the intrapersonal within yourself conflict as well as the interpersonal conflict. And that's where you probably want to be thinking also about increasing the kind of support, maybe even professional support that you have around yourself, being able to debrief, being able to counsel, being able to go into a mentoring or coaching situation, that you can be supported and that you can feel that the decisions that you are making are not only realistic but considered for where you need to be and for where your next stages are. So I just wanted to put it out there that it's important to think not just in terms of our personal rhythms, but also our organizational and work rhythms. And there's a great freedom in being able to see things and say, aha, that's the stage that my workplace or my organization is in. This is the stage that I'm coming in. This is how I'm feeling or thinking about things. And then this is what I need. All right, hopefully you found this topic a helpful one, and if not, to open up discussion. Have a great day, everyone.